Hello, it's been about 9 months since my last technical video on the Busa 7. I just wanted to tell you what's been happening with the car, how it's been doing, and specifically what I've done at the last track day and the consequences of that track day. So let me show you around the car. You'll see all the usual things that happen at track days, the rubber coming off, hitting the body, that needs to be cleaned up. Now you can see that I've got the roll cage in there, and also you can see that I've got new harnesses. I've got the Schroth ASM harnesses because I wasn't confident that the standard 4-point harnesses that were provided with the car were safe enough. The car is absolutely filthy. Despite it not raining for over a month, it rained. So as a result, I didn't get very wet, in the car. Driving at speed, most of the water gets deflected over the windscreen, but nevertheless, it did make the car very dirty. So we're going to do a few things today. We're going to talk about the car itself, how it's been doing. We're also going to talk about the issues that I found and how to resolve them. And also I wanted to show you how I turn the car from its track specification back into a street specification. So what have I done with the car? Well, the car's been great. Since I fixed the oil leak in the last video, the car is absolutely dry. There are no oil leaks. There's virtually no oil, or there is no oil consumption that I can detect. So from that perspective, the engine is well buttoned up. I also do regular bolt checks. After about 3 or 4 bolt checks, I haven't found anything that that gets loose and consistently. So that's good. I'll continue to do it before every track day. It's just a safety issue. And certainly for a car that vibrates as much as this one, it's something I would advise everybody do. For the first track day, I corner balanced the car. I borrowed some scales from a friend. I corner balanced the car with me in it and got the car really dialed in nicely. So I've got a little bit of toe out on the front, a little bit of toe in at the back. The car feels quite pointy, but it handles really, really well, and it grips really well, really, really well. So I'm very happy with the alignment, and it just proves that you can do that yourself. If you have a car scales that you can borrow from someone, it's doable. It just takes time and perseverance, but it's quite straightforward. The car was very buzzy. No, yes, the panels are bonded onto the frame, but despite that, there was a lot of hollowness in those panels. So I ended up gluing a felt type carpet into the interior of the car. So all the side panels and also the floor and the back partition between the passenger compartment and the trunk area. That helped it a little. It reduced the buzziness, which I guess was the most annoying part. The car is still very loud. So loud, in fact, that after a long drive, despite wearing earplugs, I really felt my ears ringing after a while. So I bought a good quality pair of ear defenders over the ear muffs, which has helped tremendously. And they are comfortable enough, especially for people like me who wear glasses. There has been another technical issue that has been persistent for a long time, and that was issues around the idle speed controller. When the car was switched off, the idle speed controller you could hear the motor activate, perhaps every 20-30 seconds, and it got very warm. Also, the car didn't idle very well, and it threw codes. So there was something wrong there. I have a spare throttle body, so I replaced the idle speed controller with one from that. I also checked all the wiring, but the problems persisted. So finally, I bit the bullet and decided to replace the ECM, and that was it. Replacing the ECM fixed all the issues. The car now behaves as it should, and I feel that maybe I did something incorrect and burnt out the output transistors driving the idle speed controller motor. It doesn't throw any codes now specific to that. So the track day, what went well? Well, the car handles beautifully. You can just throw it in. You can feel what the car is doing. It doesn't understeer. You can really balance it on the throttle really nicely. I'm still lacking courage to feel the car slide on the track. It would happen at speeds that, if I were to lose it, could be dangerous. So I don't want to do that. But I will take it to an autocross sometime soon and get it sliding around at a far more reasonable speed in an area where I may hit a few cones, being the worst case scenario. So I want to do that and feel what the car's like at the limit. But on the track, it handles really well. One of the things I really like is the gear change, and especially at Sonoma, where you've got a number of straights going into corners, just downshifting through with a sequential gearbox. It's just glorious. And I'm just thinking, doing that in a normal car with a H-pattern gear change, you're always a little bit concerned that you'll put it into the wrong gear and over-rev the engine. Far less chance of doing that with a sequential because you're going down through every gear, and it's just so easy and so quick. So that's really great. What didn't go well? Well, the engine won't rev much beyond 7,500 RPM, which is a real nuisance. It limits the top speed on straights to about 85 miles an hour, which is not fast enough to avoid being a mobile chicane on the racetrack. In the Elise, I'm doing over 100 miles an hour in some places, so the car is slow. Through the corners, it's fast. On the straights, it's slow. And obviously, the engine should rev out to just beyond 10,000. So there's something limiting how hard I can rev the engine. I have a few theories, and I'll take you through my debug process, trying to find out what the cause of that is. Hopefully I'll find something there. If I don't, I have to just reconsider and perhaps ask for some advice. The symptom is it feels like the engine's hitting a soft rev limiter, like it's not getting sufficient fuel. And let me just play you a video of this happening at the track, and you can see for yourself. I hopefully you could hear what was going on. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to revert the car to its street configuration. So I'll take off the roll cage, how I do it, with just me doing it, and what I've got to help me do that. I'll look for codes, see if I can debug the rev limiting issue, and we'll see what happens. So here I'm about to take the roll cage off the car. I've got it clean now. So what you can see in the background, if I have a look here, up there, is a little frame on a winch that comes down from the ceiling there. And what I do is that I wind it down, I hook up ratchet straps to the roll cage, and unbolt the roll cage and bring it up. It's as simple as that. Now this little platform with winches was probably $150. You could make it yourself very easily out of wood, or if you're handy with metal grid. And it is really nice because it does pull the roll cage out of the way to store it while it's not being in use. And if you notice on top, you can just see the roll bar. So that's where I store the roll bar. If we're looking at the roll cage, we can see that it's bolted to the frame up here and down at the bottom there. And similarly on this side. And then on the sides, you can see there are 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the first thing to do is to take the nuts off the stuff holding the back and loosen everything up so I can attach the ratchet straps. So now we've got the platform down and I've got it connected to the roll cage with ratchet straps. So what I'm going to do is lift it up, take some of the weight off the remaining bolts. You can see I've taken most of the bolts off except for this one, and just lift it up, take the weight off, and then I can remove the last bolts. So there we go. Okay. There we go. So now the cage is free. We can wind it up and off the car. These are the bolts on the back here. I just left them in to locate the roll cage. Take that up like that. And you can see the windscreen fits very nicely between there. I've also got an aero screen, but I find the windscreen to be more comfortable. It's less, no, if you have the aero screen, you have to wear a helmet or some sort of visor, because stones, it deflects the air, but it doesn't deflect the stones. So let's pull this all the way up and off the car. And then the roll bar we can just put in by hand. That doesn't need any mechanical assistance. You can just lift it on and insert it. There we go. We'll just wind this all the way up. I've got the HealTech analysis software up. Let's turn the ignition on. Talk to the ECM. So we just hit connect. Okay, so after the track day, we have no error codes. So despite the fact that we were rev limited, it hasn't thrown any codes. So I guess that's a good sign. The question is, why were we rev limited? So let's have a look. Here we can see, okay, the engine's off. So the thing I wanted to see is whether the ECM detects the gear position. So now we're in neutral. I put the clutch in, press yes, we go to 1. Okay, so hang on. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so all the gear position is indicating the correct gear. So it's not that the ECM is detecting the incorrect gear. So it appears that the ECM is seeing the gear position correctly. So that can't be the reason why we're getting some sort of rev limitation. So no more error codes were thrown. So after trying to see whether there was anything wrong with the signals going into the ECM, I saw that the gear position sensor was operating correctly, as well as the neutral switch. So what I'm trying to do now is to clean the injectors. So what I have here is the fuel rail, which I've taken off the engine. And you can see that we have 8 injectors on this engine. There's the bottom ones, which go into the head, and the top ones go into the top of the throttle bodies. Now, it could be that the injectors are blocked, and I'll show you how I plan to clean them up. So here I have an injector. I'll just take off the O-ring that seals it into the either the head or the throttle body, like that. And then I made this adapter here. So it's the straw from the can of carbon throttle body cleaner and into a piece of pipe, and I'm just using heat shrink wrap to hold it all together. I put this in the injector in there, and then I hook up the connections to the injector like so. I've got 9 volts on my power supply. Put a bit of pressure in there and just open up the injector. Let's turn it on and just run some throttle body cleaner through it, and then just make sure it's empty and that injector looks fine. And I'll do that for all 8. So I cleaned all the injectors, they looked fine. I'm now chasing down a fuel starvation issue, and there's a couple of possibilities. One is that somewhere along the line, the fuel line, which you can see here, going down the center tunnel and then all the way back into the tank, into the fuel pump, is kinked somewhere. That would mean taking the center tunnel cover off and just inspecting the fuel line, or that something in the fuel basket isn't quite right. It's quite tight in there, and it could be that a hose got kinked, which would just reduce the amount of flow and cause the fuel starvation problems I'm seeing. So as you see, I've taken the roll bar off and the boot box. I'm now going to take off this plate here, and we'll just inspect that. So after much thinking, I've decided that there is something wrong in the fuel system. I pulled the fuel basket with the fuel pump and fuel filter and regulator apart. They looked fine. I really just need to make sure that I've got enough fuel pressure at the fuel rail. So I bought a few components to see that. So let me show you that. So I've got some components. I've decided to turn everything into AN6 lines. So I've got AN6 fuel safe hose. I've got a little fuel pressure gauge here, there, with an MPT to AN6 conversion. And I've also got here, this is a fuel rail to AN connection. So let me put them on the vehicle and let's see if we can see what sort of fuel pressure we're getting at the fuel rail. Okay, I've installed the fuel pressure gauge, and you can see here that the system is pressurized to 50 psi, which is about right. It's just under 4 bar, which is what it should be. So I guess the next question is, are there any leaks? And it looks fine. What I need to do is find out whether, when the engine's actually on, that fuel pressure is going down at all. So that's what I'll do next. Well, that was inconclusive. You saw that the fuel pressure dipped a little bit as I revved the car, but free revving it perhaps to 5,000 RPM with no load really doesn't mean that you've got a lot of fuel flow. So where to now? Other than put a camera underneath the hood and take it out for a drive, I think what I'm going to do now is work on the hypothesis that the fuel lines within the fuel tank, so they are submerged in the fuel, aren't submersible fuel lines. I think they're just the standard fuel line that I used everywhere else. Typically, what can happen is that those fuel lines swell, reducing the diameter of the fuel line, and hence the amount of fuel that the pump can actually output. So I'm thinking that I'll just take the fuel hanger out. I'll rationalize those pipes in there. MK have got a new routing for the internal fuel hoses that I'll implement, and I'll put an AN fitting at the end of the fuel hose as well, just to have AN fittings there. It makes it easier to get them on and off. So here we have the fuel pump and the fuel filter and regulator. As you can see, there's a loop from the output of the fuel filter and going out, and there's a direct connection here. Now what MK are asking me to do is to shorten this up here, cut that there, and join the output of that directly onto that pipe there. That would be a good thing to do. I just need to work out how to support the actual fuel pump and fuel filter if I do that, because I'll be cutting off a bracket. In order to make the new arrangement where we have the fuel filter come up close with the fuel pump underneath it, like so, I need to remove the old arrangement. So the old arrangement must have come from another car where everything was done at an angle. So I will chop this off here, and I will make a new fuel hanger. I bought some stainless from my local metal shop, who are awesome. And I will make a hanger that just comes down and places the fuel pump at the same point as what we have here. So I will measure that up and see how we go. I've now made a template in cardboard of the hanger. So that will go lie flat there and point down, and you can see that the end there, will connect to the fuel pump. So I think that's going to work nicely. Now I just have to trace the template onto the stainless steel. Okay, I've made the hanger. I've cut the hole, I've shaped it, I've put in the holes for the screws. Now I just need to clean it up and bend this to a right angle. And then I'll be able to put holes in it to mount the fuel filter, regulator, and the fuel pump. So now I have the new hanger attached. I just need to now mount the fuel filter, regulator, and pump. So here I have the assembled fuel system. So you can see I've got submersible fuel lines here. They go in line, so there is no loop anymore. So there's a direct connection onto the fuel sock. So I think we should see whether this fits inside the fuel tank. I took the car for a test drive, and unfortunately it just stopped running, the engine. Upon reflection, I realized that the fuel pump wasn't getting any power because of this. Let me show you. So the way this is engineered, there's actually a connector from the fuel pump connector going up to the bulkhead connector. And you can see this is burnt out. Now I did clean that, but obviously this is not the right thing to do. You really don't want to have too many connectors in there. This was wobbling and it was arcing. And this is the bulkhead connector down there. And you can see that one of the terminals, it's the ground terminal actually, that is all burnt out. So there's too much current, sparking. So what I'm planning to do is to put in a different bulkhead connector where the wires just go straight through to the fuel pump. So there are no actual connections. And that works because I have a Deutsch connector at the end where it joins onto the harness, and this can handle the current quite easily. So what I need to do is work out what wires are the positive and negative going to the fuel pump, and then cut that off, splice in the appropriate wires into the harness, and go from there. So here we have the assembled fuel hanger. So with the pump, the filter and regulator, we've got the wires now going directly through the bulkhead connector up until the Deutsch connector. So there's no physical connector there inside the tank. Hopefully this will do the trick. We'll find out. So here I've taken the center tunnel cover off. This is the fuel line here, and as you can see, it's held in firmly, but it isn't crushing the tube at all the way along here to underneath into the engine bay, and at the back past the handbrake and underneath going to the fuel tank. It's a few weeks later now, and I am still pondering what could be wrong with the car. So as you saw, I put a fuel pressure regulator on it, and I decided to put a GoPro under the hood and try and reproduce the issue and have a look at the fuel pressure when it occurs. So that's coming up in the next segment. As you saw, the car wasn't running out of fuel. There was enough fuel pressure at high RPM. Everything looks fine. If anything, the fuel pressure may be a little bit too high, but I think it's fine. I then went to a few motorbike shops in the neighborhood. There's a few race shops, and asked them what they think it could be. And they gave me some good advice. They basically said, well, you've got a higher Busa engine driven from a stock ECU, but the exhaust is different, the airbox is non-existent, you've got a different intake, and it could just be the tune. I may just be running out of fuel at high RPM. So I bit the bullet. I bought a Woolwich Racing tuning software and hardware data logger and wideband O2 sensor. And in the next video, I'll show you how I installed that and how I went about tuning the bike and tuning the car, and let's see if that actually resolves the issue. So that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed this video about my trials and tribulations, and hopefully the next video will be one showing you how I resolve the issue.